Hi, everybody. It's Jenny Clark, the GovCon CFO. My company is Solvability, and anything I'm sharing with you today is at solvability.com. In our earlier session, we went over the wrap rate calculator. That's the starting point that you would want to use when you're pricing federal contracts, when you have the spreadsheet that has here's a labor category. It asks you to put in a direct labor amount and it has percentages that say fringe, overhead, and G&A. You got to figure out what those are. In my example, super simplified, I just chose 21.6% for fringe, 2% for overhead, 12% G&A, and 8% fee. The reason I chose that is mathematically that comes out to a straight one and a half, 1.5, which means for $50 worth of direct labor, the fully burdened labor rate with fee is going to be 50 times 1.5 or $75 an hour. So now you're at the more advanced stage. I'm going to switch to the indirect rate summary. The indirect rate summary is showing you similar information in different ways, because all of these things actually tie together when you run your actual indirect rates or you create forecasting information from indirect rates. Again, as I said yesterday, don't expect to get all this at once. I remember asking my boss over and over. I wrote these tools from that, and I've used them for many, many years in different variations. And that's what I like to help people understand the math of government contracting. How do you price? How do you use this? So over here to the left, I've got something that says Statement of Indirect Expenses Summary. On some of the proposals I've seen lately, not only do you have to show your indirect rates, you have to show how you mathematically came up with them. And so the way that this works is when you are actually running your company and you have an income statement or a profit and loss statement, your accounts are grouped by something called pools. And those are sections of your income statement if you're following DCA compliance. For your fringe pool, payroll taxes, leave, group benefits. Oh, and workers' comp. Your overhead, the cost of the technical support for your technical workforce, and your G&A, your headquarters, your corporate expenses. I've got these tied to other sheets when they're doing the calculation, so we're not going to go into the detail of that. But here's what I do want to explain. On your profit and loss statement, there's certain sections. There's usually a section, a line for revenue, some lines for direct cost. And I'm just going to say direct labor. I'm just going to say that that's all you have. This is super simplified. You'll have a section for fringe benefits, and that's going to be payroll taxes, leave, group benefits. You'll have a section for overhead. That's the cost of supporting your technical workforce. You'll have a section for G&A, general and administrative. And down at the bottom, there'll be a line that says net income. That's going to be what you have left over. The only way to have net income is to have profit. The government calls that fee. So in this example, what I'm telling you is that I had direct labor cost. I have direct labor cost. I have fringe, overhead, G&A. This is a group here, and overhead and G&A, and it's doing calculations. And so the pool, which means I've got expenses on my profit and loss or income statement of 926,000. I've got a fringe base, and that's, by the way, all of your productive labor. That means your direct labor, your overhead labor, if you've got that, not everybody does, and your G&A labor, all added together because all of those costs receive fringe benefits because everybody that's working for you gets payroll taxes and leave and group benefits. Okay. You've got G&A, which I've described as the cost of supporting your technical workforce. And in this example, on your income statement or profit and loss, it's $93,000. The base for overhead is the direct labor component of the fringe pool. It's direct labor plus fringe, and it's calculating a 2% indirect rate. So I'm just showing you a little bit more math than I did in the wrap rate example. G&A of corporate expense in this example is $573,000. That's the people that are working in the G&A area, the fringe applied to those employees. And then the cost of other G&A or corporate expenses, bank charges, legal fees, professional services, accounting software. And that's coming to a rate of 12%. All I've done here in this next section is just show you that wrap rate calculator again, with the idea that I want you to be able to keep building on the concepts in this math. These are advanced cost accounting calculations, by the way. So in here, I've given you a fee percent that you can type in yellow, so I could make that 12%. It's going to recalculate if it's 15%. If it's 20%, that's telling me for every dollar of direct labor with 20% fee and indirect rates to cover my estimated cost, it's almost 1.7%, or labor multiplier almost 1.7. So 50 times 1.7, I can't even do in my head very fast, so we're not doing that. But 50 times 1.5 or 75, I can do that. I want you to remember those mathematical relationships, just like you memorize chemistry formulas in the day. So that's the statement of indirect expenses summarized. And then our wrap rate calculation. I'm going to go a little bit more complex here. I mentioned that the statement of indirect expenses comes off of your income statement or your profit and loss. For those calculations to be possible, though, your accounting system has to be structured in such a way so it has separate general ledger accounts that make up direct labor. Direct non-labor might be ODCs and travel. Your fringe, payroll taxes, leave, and group benefits. Overhead might have labor and non-labor portions. G&A, labor, and G&A non-labor. So what I'm doing here is I showed you these rates, but I didn't show exactly how they got calculated. Down here, what I'm showing you is off of an income statement, how they do get calculated. This 929,000 is our fringe benefits over the fringe base, and that's going to turn out to be, what did I say? Direct labor, overhead labor, G&A labor. It's coming out to 21.6%. My overhead pool, which could have some labor and some non-labor, is the 93,000 divided by the overhead base, which happens to be direct labor plus fringe. And then G&A is your corporate expense. And I've got G&A labor, that would be HR, accounting, the executive of the company, the CEO of the company. All of those costs are running the company, are part of it. And then G&A non-labor, as I mentioned, would be banking fees, legal fees, professional services, things like that. And there is my calculation. So the indirect rate summary in this example that we're working with today just shows you how these calculations work. And then a summary level, because I want to build on multiple levels. So be on the lookout for the next video. And if you need to reach me, it's Jenny@solvability.com. And you can text or call me on my phone, 256-882-6276. If you'd like to have a quick discovery call, find out more about what you need and see if I can help you.